Hello, everybody. How are you doing? Corinne Clapham here. And I wanted to chat with you about the upcoming astrological forecast and energy. So, we just recently had spring equinox come, and even more recent, we just had the full moon and the first lunar eclipse, and that was in the sign of Libra. So if you were feeling it the past couple days, past week, that would have been the full moon you were feeling, and us stepping into the eclipse season. Now, full moons can be intense sometimes, and especially when we have it paired with an eclipse, it can intensify it. Um, the other thing, there's something I wanted to say about that full moon. Oh, yes, if you were having trouble sleeping leading up to it, again, full moons can do that. I know for myself, there's always one night leading up to a full moon where I have a hard time sleeping. And then again, once paired with eclipse season coming up, that can also disrupt our sleeping patterns as well. So, what I want to talk to you about is the total eclipse that we have coming up April 8th, 2024. This is also called the Great North American Eclipse, and that's also because it will be passing through that. So it'll be starting out around Mexico, going through Texas, some places through the States, and then even some places in Canada. So you can actually look up maps where they're going through. It'll be going right through Eagle Pass, Texas, which is a border area. I believe south of Dallas and just north of Austin. um, Indianapolis is one of them, Cleveland, I believe Erie is the other one, and then south of Ottawa, Montreal, part of Montreal, and Newfoundland. And there's definitely some places in between. But like I said, you can check out the maps that are there. And those are the past of the total eclipse. So where it'll be a lot more intense and where you can actually see it a lot better. So really with this eclipse, it's essentially as if the moon um, is covering the sun to a certain period of time. And so it's very interesting. And the thing is really interesting about this one, it'll be about another 20 years before we have one that's similar to this. And so I believe it's like August 2044 would be the next one. So this is a pretty big deal. Um, I believe it shifts perhaps in different areas. This one is going to be quite interesting. So I want to talk about the different layers that we have going on with this. Um, this will be in the sign of Aries, and Aries is also ruled by Mars. Mars is also going to be placed in Pisces. So Mars can be quite a fiery, sometimes aggressive kind of energy. It'll be interesting because it'll be in Pisces for a period of time, and Pisces can be a very it's a water sign. So sometimes the emotions can flow, ebb and flow, and fluctuate, and sometimes can be a bit sensitive. I like to use that word very respectfully because sometimes people hear the word sensitive and it can sometimes, I guess some people put it in a negative connotation at times. So I always like to clarify that's not always a negative thing, being sensitive. It just means like our senses. If someone's sensitive, it's usually because their senses are very heightened more than the average person. So they feel things a lot more. And now, aside from that, we have Mars that's also in conjunction with Saturn. Saturn is a very interesting planet, and the fact that those two are going to be in conjunction with each other, it could it could be very, very intense energies. Saturn is about discipline, it's about structure, but it can also be about limitation, sometimes rebelliousness. Sometimes if things are too structured or too confined, then we feel that, right? And we want to break loose of that. And especially with the Mars energy, um, I feel like there's going to be some restrictions that are happening. And with the Mars energy, the fiery, assertive, aggressive energy might come through to break free from any limitations that are being felt by people or imposed on people. Now, the other thing, we have two other big things that are happening as well, is we also have Chiron that's going to be conjunct of the new moon. So this is also like these energies, you got to understand putting together, it's going to make for a very interesting time. Um, Chiron, sometimes some people call it the wounded healer. I personally don't like calling it the wounded healer. I don't like that label for it, but Chiron is about the triggers coming through. Really, what's happening is like the triggers are being illuminated to show the individual or place or whatever it is that we're talking about. Um, what needs to be healed. And sometimes it feels like we've healed this already and it's coming back around again, but it's, we're healing it from a different perspective than we were the first time, but another patterning. And the other thing about patterning and kind of re-looping to a certain degree, we also, on top of all of this, have Mercury in retrograde from April 1st to April 25th, sorry, 24th. And don't forget, we have 15 days, I would say 12 to 15 days pre shadow. So we're already feeling this. And then the 15 days, 12 to 15 days for this one, I feel it'll be 13 to 15 days post shadow after that. So even though, it's not like it just starts April 1st and then just ends April 24th, we're feeling these energies already ahead of time. It's like the full moons. We already start feeling them ahead of time. And so with this Mercury retrograde, very quickly what this is about, because I have explained Mercury retrograde and retrogrades in previous videos, but very quickly, with the retrograde and planet, it almost has the planet starts to slow down and gives the illusion it's going backwards. But what's really happening with us, what we feel down here, and the reason why we feel this, if you think about even a full moon, when we have a full moon, that starts to affect the current of the oceans, the lakes, the water. And if you think of human bodies, we're made up of, 65% and up of water. So of course that's going to affect us. That's why we feel that. There's even statistics that say hospitals usually have a higher count of people coming in around full moons. People can sometimes sense or see things out there in society that's a little bit, a little bit more wacko, I guess you could say. I'll tell you, one full moon went out in Florida. Trying to think when that was, December or January. Must have been December. Anyways, I pushed myself to go out to an event. I was so tired and I wanted to go to a moon event. And so I decided to go, and it was like, man, the energies, the people were so heightened, like just the agitation from people, and just seeing, some of them, one or two, and granted, they were probably very intoxicated, but like yelling. And it was just like, I was like, I don't even want to be out here. I want to just be inside and in my cozy little area. And it's not to say every full moon is going to be like that. And it's not to say that every transit or retrograde we go through is going to be a certain way. However, there's usually certain themes that take place, and when we're aware of them, I find that we are able to move through them with a lot more ease and grace. And really, that's why my whole intention in even sharing these astrological energetic forecasts is because, like I said, I think if we're aware with it, we can implement things that'll make it an easier ride. But not only that, if we start to notice things that are going on within us or around us, we realize it's not something personal. Like it's not just us going through that. It is actually an energetic field that's happening, right? And not to blame everything on that either, but it can have an effect on us to a certain degree. So I'm just talking more on the collective energy now, like on the grander scope of these energies when I'm talking about the conjunctions that are taking place, this eclipse taking place. Of course, you can go look into your own chart. You can see what house that Aries is for you, and that can give you an idea of some of the themes that might play out for you within the eclipse. Eclipse seasons are also known for it almost like speeds up your trajectory in a sense of anything that has not been serving you will it'll be shown to you, or something will happen to clear that out. And sometimes it can be a little bit overbearing, it can be abrupt, but just know that if that is happening for you, it's really clearing the path to put you on the higher path for you, right? And if we don't make those decisions for ourselves, sometimes the universe steps in and helps to guide us on that best path. So just remember that if you're going through it. I want to go back to Mercury in retrograde here. So with the retrogrades, it's always about 3 R's, like the review, um oh my gosh, I forgot the 3 R's. But essentially, it's like we're going back in time. So Mercury was going forward in its direction, in the transits, passing the different planets, the houses, and all that that's going through. But when it goes in retrogrades, it's almost like it's shifting backwards. So it's time for us to go back and to tie up any loose ends that we might have um, missed the first time around of it going direct. So really, it's a time to reflect. It's a time to revisit things. It's a time to it's not really a time to, like, be action starting big new things. It's more of a time to really reflect and to refine and retune anything that needs to either be, um, cleaned up, forgiven, healed, whatever needs to be tightened with that before we go direct again, right, into another clean energy. Now, every planet has its themes, its personality traits. And for Mercury, it's about travel, technology, and communication. So these people quite often are like they can feel Mercury in retrograde. One, because it's a fast moving planet. So sometimes when it's fast moving, we feel it a lot more rather than some of the slower planets when they're in retrograde. It's more subtle because it's over a longer period of time and a slower movement. But Mercury, it's April 1st to 24th. So it's quite a short time. We feel it. But not only that, these themes, these are things that we use every day. Technology we use every day. Travel, that's a big one. Communication. So I always say with Mercury retrograde, we want to be more mindful of our communication to others, but also when we're receiving communication to others, is maybe try not to take things too personal. Like if something comes across a certain way, instead of reacting to it, maybe either pause and think about it. For example, if you get an email, pause and think about it, come back with it with fresh eyes. Sometimes we read things and we take it a certain way, and then we come back at it with a clear perspective. We're like, oh, wait a second, I kind of like misread that, or you know what I mean? Sometimes it's good to have that time. Sometimes it's good to have someone, oh, can you clarify that? Rather than us jumping to conclusions and assuming what we thought that they meant. So this is what I mean. Just having a little bit more softness, tenderness, more forgiving space around it, asking for clarification if need be, and also being mindful with our communication. Again, not reacting, but responding, right? Those are two different things. With travel, you definitely want to leave yourself more ample time than you usually do, whether it's for work or flying, what have you. Definitely check your itineraries a couple of times. If you are flying or going somewhere, double check your flights, maybe making sure they're arriving on time before you leave to the airport. Double check your passport. Like this is what I mean. Just giving yourself more time and double checking things so that if there is any blips, you can catch them, right? Rather than seeing them when it's too late. So, communication, travel, technology, if you have important stuff on your computer, back it up. Make sure you back it up. And if you're finding that there's glitches with technology, just having a little bit more um, patience with that. And so, again, knowing all these things can make it a lot smoother. This is this is going to be interesting. It's like, man, April 8th and around that time, I think it's going to be quite. I don't like to project anything, especially if it's anything negative. So I do like to use the words like this could potentially happen. It may happen rather than saying this is going to happen. Um, it's going to be bumpy, I think, in some areas of the world, especially in the States. Uh, and also the fact that it's going through the States, the fact that it's going to be going through right through Eagle Pass, Texas, where the border is. And I think, there's already been border issues. I think that's been going around in a lot of places. I have a feeling things could potentially get amplified around there, especially with all the other energies, with the conjunction of Mars and Saturn, and on top of it, you have Chiron. Like these are big things. I think that are, and we've seen it. We've seen. I'm not going to go into detail about the individual stuff that's been going on around the world, but things have been. simmering is probably not the right word, but it's been starting to bubble up. And so I feel like this could be a really big burst of energy where people just have had it about certain issues. And this is where the Mars energy comes in, right? It's the aggressors fighting back, and it's fighting back around these disciplines and these limitations and structures that have been put on people, put on societies. So um, a lot of people are actually wanting to travel to go see the total eclipse, which I don't blame them. This is kind of a really fascinating thing. It's very interesting, right? It's like the moon appear over the sun, and it's this moment where I don't think it goes completely dark because they have like the corona, so there'll be the edge of the sun around it. So from what I read, it looks like still the light of a full moon, but the temperature will change. The lightness will change to darkness for a little bit. If you're in the path of totality, you will see it. If you're in those areas where um, the path where it's hitting the most, and a lot of people are driving out to it. A lot of people are. This is a big thing for a lot of people, and it's amazing. And I'm seeing some people how excited they are to go see it, and I'm just like, I think because I know all the other things that we just talked about, I'm like, I just don't see it the same way as some others might. Um, I think if you're traveling to go out and see these, just like I said, like remember Mercury's in retrograde. It's not to go in fear, but just implement things that are going to help you. The other thing is making sure your gas is filled up ahead of time. Don't leave it last minute. I don't know. That just came through as a message right now. So I feel like I have to say that for somebody. Things like that. I also know that, especially in the States, places that are in the path of totality, they have been urged to make sure to stock up on their gas and their groceries and their water and all that, because they're saying that they are expecting quite a lot of people to come to these places, and so they just want to make sure that those who live there have got what they need. I don't know, maybe they're just urging people to do that as a precaution. Who knows? But I always think it's better to be safer and prepared, and if nothing ends up happening, great, fine, no problem. And if it does, at least you're already prepared. So anyways, this is going to be a very interesting time. Some tips that I also wanted to say, especially when we have a lot of bumpy things that are happening, and know with astrology, it's just really like patterns and themes. Um, and we can see that playing out every year. This is how we can kind of see and get somewhat of a gauge of what could be coming. But I want you to remember, like, especially during these times where it can feel a little bit turbulent, is really hunker down and focus on being grounded down to root down. The other thing is, no matter what is going on in life or in the world or what may come or what does come, it is so important that we spend more time visualizing the world and the life that we want more than what we go into fear sometimes, or into all that. I'm not saying to completely ignore what's going on in the world and live under a rock and be like everything's good, but also like we have to remember that what we visualize and what we feel within those visualizations do have a tremendous effect. And so the more that we can also remember to put it towards the world that we want to see, how we want to see it evolve, and where we want it to be, can have a huge impact. So I want you to remember that. All right, my loves, I'm wishing you all the best, and I will see you next time on the next video. And if you're looking to sign up to my mailing list, where I also share some love notes throughout time, especially around self care, self love, self discovery, I will put the link down below. And if you're ever looking for psychic medium readings as well, I will put the link down below. Much love. Take good care of yourselves, my loves.